The Brooks Ghost series is above and beyond their bestseller, and it's very much in the vein of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But with the introduction of a Ghost Max, it's given Brooks a license to innovate, to modernize. But the essential question here is the Ghost Max still a ghost? I bet you didn't have this on your bingo card for this channel in 2024. A Brooks and a ghost being reviewed on this channel. I certainly didn't, but I can genuinely say I'm excited about this shoe and very impressed, and I've been enjoying my time in this shoe thus far. Now, I've always been intrigued by the Brooks Ghost series. It's one of those shoes that's iconic, it's reliable, it's durable. Those who love it really love it, and Brooks iterates on it over each generation directly from runner feedback, which, how can you say that about many other brands that are directly taking what runners want and putting it into the newest generation of a beloved model? Brooks does it like no one else. But that 12 mil drop, how is there still a shoe with a 12 mil drop in 2024? I put the Brooks 12, 13, 14, and 15 on my feet, and it felt like I was putting a high heel on my foot because the foam in the Brooks has traditionally been very firm, so you feel that 12 mil drop. Drops in shoes are sort of references or reference points nowadays because we have much more softer compliant foams, but not in the Brooks Ghost. 12 mil is 12 mil, and it just was a deal breaker for me. I could never actually purchase one because I couldn't see myself running in that high of a drop. But here in the Ghost Max, Brooks has really taken the opportunity to sort of create a blank slate and really look at what can the Brooks be in 2024 and what is a modern Ghost actually going to feel like. So going over the specs quickly in this shoe, what do we actually have here? We have 38 mil of foam in the heel, 32 mil of foam in the forefoot. There's a lot of foam in this shoe with a 6 mil drop. That 6 mil drop is really important. We'll get to that in a bit. This shoe comes in at 10.1 ounces or 286 grams, according to Brooks in the reference US men's size 9. I happen to be a US men's size 9, and in my pair of these, this is the right shoe. It came in at 287 grams, and the left one came in at 288 grams. So pretty spot on for Brooks and their specs. Now, there's a lot of interesting technologies in this shoe, and this very much does feel like a modernized Ghost. And I think that's a really good thing for Brooks because it now gives them the freedom to kind of push the Ghost in a slightly new direction. Starting with the upper on this shoe, we have a very, very soft engineered mesh upper, very compliant to your foot. So when you step into this shoe, this upper just surrounds your foot in a very soft feeling. It's actually very nice. Moving to the ankle area, we have a very padded ankle collar and Achilles flare. I believe Brooks calls this their comfort collar technology, and I think it's across a lot of other models in their training series. We have a very, very stiff heel counter in this shoe. I don't think I've ever felt such a stiff heel counter in any shoe I've run in, but what it creates is a very deep pocket back here for your heel, so there should be no heel lift issues, and you're amply padded back here, so there should be no problems. The tongue in this shoe is non-gusseted, but it's also mildly padded. So what that means is that this tongue will wrap around your foot, and when you get it in the right spot, it will stay there. Now, I have a high volume foot, so sometimes very thin tongues can be hard for me to get in the right place, especially when I'm lacing. But this somewhat padded tongue sits on the foot really nicely. Now, with this beautifully simple eyelet chain with these silicone eyelets themselves, the lacing on this shoe actually works really well too. So you get that tongue positioned, then you start to pull the laces tight. The silicone eyelets actually will grip the laces, so the tension that you get as you're pulling them tight, they'll stay now. So it allows you just to lace this all very simply, very comfortably without a lot of drama that a lot of shoes can actually give you. In the toe box, I would say we actually have a fairly generous fit in here. This, to me, isn't the widest shoe, but it's definitely not narrow. And I think the volume in the toe box area is actually quite good. I've had absolutely no problems with width or height of any kind in this shoe. The other thing about this shoe, which is really important, is that it has a very straight last. Brooks calls this their linear last construction. What that means is that this shoe actually is very well built for orthotics. Again, I think that's a hallmark of Brooks shoes, but this one's no different. This shoe will accommodate pretty much any orthotic because you have a very straight last that is, again, very conforming to your foot, and it fits very well. So overall, this upper is actually quite outstanding in just the way it locks down your foot. The plushness and the step-in feel to this shoe is really quite good. Now let's move to the midsole. And the midsole, I think, is really the magic of this shoe, and it's really kind of the thing that really stands out about this shoe. Now, this is a Ghost Max. It's a Max. Now, this is the second in Brooks's line. I believe it's the second in Brooks's line of the Max series. And what Max means is really max stack, max cushion. And for this shoe, that's really three things. It's the higher stack of foam, the 38-32 of foam. It's the lower drop, so that's 6 mil drop. And it's something Brooks is calling their glide roll technology, which is really the rocker. Now, that rocker, I think, is really what makes this shoe run really well. Because I think the pivot point is somewhere in here. So it's somewhere around the 60% of the shoe. It's a little bit more towards the center of the shoe as opposed to being pushed well forward. What that gives you is a much more kind of generous feel. It can feel a little bit more aggressive, but I think what they're intending with that is that it engages much sooner. So you get a very smooth, propulsive ride. And that's really what they're going for, is they're going for a shoe that helps propel you forward easier. And that's really what's differentiating this from a standard Ghost. Standard Ghost makes you work fairly hard to move forward. This shoe is meant to propel you, roll you forward. And that glide roll technology and the pivot point being around the 60% of the shoe really does a great job with that. Another key feature of this midsole is just how broad it is. This is a very broad-based shoe. You can see the flare on the medial and the lateral side in the forefoot and the heel. There is ample foam in here for stability. That straight last that I talked about in the upper and this wide base make this shoe very stable. The real magic of this midsole is the foam itself. This shoe is using Brooks's DNA Loft V2 foam. It is not a supercritical foam. It is just a simple rubberized EVA foam. Now, I have a bit of a soft spot for rubberized EVA foams, but they have to be done right. And this one's done really right. It's a very Goldilocks formula, it seems, that Brooks is nailed here. Rubberized EVA foams can either feel too soft or they pack out too much. I'm looking at you, Hoka Clifton. After 7 or 8 miles in a Hoka Clifton, it would feel like I was running on the ground. I might as well have been in a racing flat because the foam was just packed out. Now, it's been a few years since I've run in a Hoka, but that's my memory of running in a Hoka. Or a rubberized EVA foam can just feel too squirrely, too mushy. It provides no sort of feedback when you run. It's just squish. I don't like that either. This one's sort of in between. Other reviewers have called it firm. I wouldn't consider this a firm foam, but it's definitely not soft. It's not soft like a lot of the ultra silky smooth shoes that we've seen in this category. For example, the Asics Nimbus 25. FF Blast Plus Eco is much softer than this foam, but I would say this has a much more positive ride to it. It is firmer, but because of the technology, because of the rocker, and because of the positiveness of this foam, it does roll you forward in an extremely nice way. Whether you're a heel striker or a forefoot striker or even a midfoot striker, this shoe is going to find a way to propel you, roll you forward. And a lot of that work is being done by the foam in this shoe. And it is probably the thing I love the most about this shoe is this foam. Now, as much as I like the foam in this shoe and I find the qualities of DNA Loft V2 to be sort of perfect for what this shoe is trying to do, we have seen the Ghost Max 2 previewed at the running event in Austin a couple months ago, and that shoe actually is getting DNA Loft V3, which is Brooks's supercritical rubberized EVA, or nitro-infused in Brooks tech speak. I'm curious how the Ghost Max 2 will run compared to this one, because I'm worried it will get too soft, because this shoe, I just don't think it's going to work if it's too soft. Right now, it's the right mix of protectiveness, plushness of ride, but support and firmness that doesn't make this shoe just too, one-dimensional. Interestingly, we've also seen the Go 16 previewed at the same event. The Go 16 will also get DNA Loft V3 or their nitro-infused supercritical foam. Now for the Go 16, I think that's going to make a huge difference, because the softer foam in the standard Ghost, which still has the 12 mil drop, should make that ultra high drop a little bit more tolerable and give you a little bit more response in the Ghost. So the future of the Ghost 16 and the Ghost Max 2 is going to be interesting. I hope it doesn't change too much from this shoe. Now lastly, going to the outsole of the shoe, we have a pretty straightforward blown rubber or segmented rubber outsole on this shoe. There's a lot of rubber coverage on this. I've done mostly road running in this shoe, but I've also took this shoe on the trails once, and it did surprisingly well. One concern I do have here is that I have about 38K or about 24 miles on this shoe right now, and I'm getting a lot of wear right here. Like, I'm wearing the rubber pattern off right here. Now this is my right shoe. I'm typically very harsh on the lateral side of my right shoe. I think I scuff it a little bit, so I typically will wear this out. I'm also a 4-foot striker, so I'm landing there all the time. I typically wear this pretty quickly, but this shoe's wearing a lot quicker than I would expect it to. So I'm going to keep an eye on this as far as durability, but otherwise the grip and the feel of this, I think for a shoe that's meant to be a daily trainer or an all-around trainer, this amount of rubber protection on the outsole of the shoe is ideal, because it means you can literally bring this shoe anywhere. And that's what I want out of a shoe like this. How have I been using this shoe, and what are my plans for it? Well, I haven't put as much time in this shoe as I really wanted to, just because I have a lot of other shoes to run in right now. So I'm churning through a lot of shoes basically that you'll begin seeing on this channel. But this shoe has stood out to me lately because it is, again, as I've said in this review, the right mix of support, protectiveness, but response. It's not too firm, not too soft, but it's responsive. And that's really a tricky thing for a max stack shoe to me. The rocker helps. The rocker will always propel you forward, but if the foam is too soft, too squishy, it doesn't matter how good the rocker is, how good the geometry is. If it's too squishy, it's too one-dimensional, and I'm just not going to use it for anything. Partly why I've never gone for the A6 Gel Nimbus. It just was too soft for me. I knew I was never going to run in that, especially when I already have a Nova Blast 3 or now 4, and I definitely prefer the Nova Blast 4. So this shoe has been quite enjoyable to run in, and I do plan on spending quite a bit more time on this shoe, and I'm going to cover a few other Brooks shoes this year, because this got me really interested in the brand and what they're doing, because I think there's a lot of smart ideas in this shoe. And I think the package that they put together in this shoe is quite good. As I said in the upfront of this video, I am genuinely excited about running in this shoe. And I never thought that would be the case for a Brooks or a Ghost. But here we are. And it's a new year, so I'm sort of rolling with it and really enjoying everything this shoe has to offer. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you like this type of content, consider subscribing. You'll see more content like this pop up on your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.